We've got the PM about to touch down in the US. It is a significant trip, 4 days. He'll be meeting with Joe Biden and also urging for a particular bit of legislation to be passed in US Congress. Joining me now is Australian Financial Review political editor Phillip Coorey.
Tom,
thanks for your time. So you've generously given the trip out to someone else. So, you get to your role. You do a lot of these things. It's an interesting one. I mean, even when you sort of read that we're trying to sort of say, hey, Congress passed this bill. Within this is whether they're even allowed to sell us submarines. So we sort of talk of AUKUS as if it's job done, but it makes it sound a bit more perilous, doesn't it?
Well, it's more so given the state of the Congress at the moment. I mean, I just saw on your station about half an hour ago, there's like 10 candidates for Speaker. And that goes right to the nub of this, Tom, because the Prime Minister ostensibly was going to address the Congress and use that message to urge the Congress to pass the necessary legislation so we can get moving on the subs. And if they haven't got a speaker, he can't address because there's no one to invite him to address the House. So he may do nothing altogether or just talk to the Senate. So it's a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah, but when you think of AUKUS, I mean, Republicans have had a bit of an issue around spending and timelines, what it would mean for their submarines, and then you get to what maybe Donald Trump might think. I mean, he hasn't been afraid of America first. Yeah. So look, it turns your mind to need more of a plan B.
Well, possibly. I mean, I was listening to Kevin Rudd this morning. You don't miss him, do you? But
he said emphases within the first 10
but he was sort of turned off. I mean, he would know better than you or I. He's over there and he's the ambassador, and he said it will happen, but it'll just take its time. It's got to iron out a few humps, as he said. So I guess they're operating on that assumption. It's not like we're going to be buying one of these next week. So. But at the same time, the government needs to show some progress on it, given they've talked a fairly big game on AUKUS.
Yeah, wouldn't be interesting, wouldn't it? Because Joe Hockey was sort of the Trump whisperer for us. Kevin Rudd, would he be able to park his ego and just flatter the man for however long it takes? And
they might just give up to get him out of their office, I reckon. You have one free. I shouldn't say that. Look, I don't know. I don't know these people, but I assume it will move in that direction. It'll just take a while. China
tariffs, so they're being reviewed, but it's all sort of the vibe is positive, if you like, ahead of this trip. So it's been softly, slowly, but amid a lot of sort of cynicism, Labor's got it done.
Well, look, if you look at all the irritants that were in the relationship when they took over, I think now other than lobster exports and a couple of other things,
beef, I think,
and the one poor fellow is still in jail over there. They've all been ticked off one by one. We've given a little bit, as we saw on Friday with the Port of Darwin. That was a big irritant. The Chinese couldn't understand why we had another review into that, and also a little bit of leeway on the dumping of Chinese steel for wind turbines. We gave a bit on that. So, look, I think that the Labor government has done very well. Clearly, they've taken the temperature out of the whole thing. At the same time, you've got to give the coalition some points for holding the line when this was really willing. They didn't reap the benefits of it, but I think one sort of helped the other happen, and the change in diplomacy has been very good. So PM goes over there next week. It's interesting. A week away, he'd be just a week after he gets home from Washington, and so it is sort of like the two bookends, isn't it? Of our not probably since John Howard made a big thing out of juggling the US and Chinese relationship in far more benign times, politically and geopolitically. It was a lot easier then than it is now. So. Hats off if it comes off in China. I think it's good for us as a country.
Yeah. Labor seemed to instantly get a bit of a hit with relations in a positive way. It was like the under new management sign went up. And so that bit was the sort of the easy part, I guess. But what's interesting is you mentioned the irritants. I mean, there's still a fair bit of irritation around AUKUS and what we're doing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but what's interesting
small issues like the South China Sea, notwithstanding. I mean, sort of the.
But that's what's interesting. Yeah. We're still, not a backward step on that. Yeah. And that, and yet all this stuff is sort of happening. So China sticks you in the freezer for a while, and if you.
Oh, it's a delicate dance too. I mean, the Prime Minister will be talking to the President this week about China and how to contain it. Then he goes over and embraces them, and then straight after that he goes to the Pacific Island Forum to say, what can we do to stop you falling under China's influence? So it is this, what we call in the Financial Review, zigzag diplomacy. And that's just the way it is.
Not to mention a lot of the things we sell, China really need them.
Hopefully.
Just finally, latest situation in Israel. I guess we're sort of just waiting now. Yeah. It's a bit of a waiting game, but it has been interesting to see the way things have moved. Initially, absolute horror at the attacks carried out. Then there was the hospital, which turns out almost certainly not to have been Hamas. But there is an ongoing sort of reputational thing for Israel to manage out of all of this, of keeping people on side around how they manage the civilian side of things.
It is, and the images coming out of Gaza are just terrible, and they're not helping. They're just not helping the Israeli case, because you're seeing women and children, getting caught up in these bombing raids and all the horror that's going on there. It's really quite, I think, polarising the community here as well as around the world. Inside Israel, I know they're mounting a very strong effort with the foreign press over there. They're taking on tours of the kibbutzes and giving them access to the medical examiners who are still trying to identify a lot of the bodies from those massacres. A lot of them were so badly burned or mutilated, they're having trouble. And just reminding the West and the media, what happened on October 7. There's always a feeling that they've forgotten about that. So that, I suspect, is in preparation for what's about to come next, which is this ground invasion, and it's going to get fairly messy, I suspect.
Might be interesting timing for the PM alongside Joe Biden. Phil Coorey, thank you.